Welcome to Corrective Consciousness episode 278, the podcast where we explore the inanity of pop culture. I'm your host, vysethebold, and this is
Lotus Prince.
And we have another wonderful show here because we are going to be talking about the best of the Tim Burton Batman line.
And by that we mean the movie that was not made by Tim Burton, of course.
Nor is it the best.
It's not? Oh my goodness.
It is widely considered by many people to be one of the worst superhero movies of all time, but I wouldn't call
of all
it
time,
that.
I'm not going to go that far, but it's certainly the worst of those four Batman movies.
It's certainly brought up in the conversation because it was actually popular and bad. So, like, you know, it was mainstream and bad. Whereas, like, there's plenty of other bullshit out there that you're like, okay, well, that's clearly worse. The Incredible Bulk, for instance.
Amazing Bulk.
Amazing Bulk.
That doesn't count.
It's not a comic book movie. It's just a ripoff. But, yeah, it's so, after the success of Batman Forever, they decided to, make another sequel and called it Batman and Robin. But they did the thing in this where they introduce way too many new characters and give them no screen time as a result. So this was one of the first movies where I recognized that even as a kid when I went to the theater and saw it. Batman has been recast yet again as George Clooney this time. Widely considered to probably be the worst Batman.
Yeah, and it's funny because he's a good actor, but just, man, hello Freeze, I'm Batman.
One of the considered to be one of the best actors of all time, which is actually really funny considering like he's one of the worst Batman of all time. He also was Batman before he really got his chops in as a really famous actor.
Yeah.
The only other thing that I know he was in before this was From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Where he was a radically different character.
Yeah, and I loved him in that. I guess there was... I don't know if this was before Four Kings or after, but Four Kings is where he got his, legitimacy. He was... his acting chops were recognized. This is way before Michael Clayton, people. This is way before any Coen brother movies or anything like that. So... he just is a cocky, weirdly, he's kind of
smarmy.
He's a smarmy Batman, yeah. He's not brooding like you'd expect. He's not I guess he's more like Adam West than any other interpretation of Batman has been. But he's cool and confident, whereas, even... he's just smarming, like you said, just one-liners and shit. And his backstory isn't entering into it at all, and it doesn't even seem like he has any connection. He's not even trying to be in the spirit of Michael Keaton or Val Kilmer's interpretation of the character. Well, it's his own version of it.
This is an episodic Batman movie. It's it's in continuity, but it's not. It's just here's a Batman. This is what this version is like. Anyway, here's a villain.
Yeah, like we said in the past, the only thing that brings all of these movies together is Alfred and Commissioner Gordon, and that's it.
Yeah, weirdly Commissioner Gordon.
I mean, Chris O'Donnell does return
he's still Robin,
as Robin in this. So there is that. But they're really weirdly competitive in this movie. When Robin
they're
never
fighting
is
over
like that.
Girl, because Uma Thurman is. Speaking of which, Uma Thurman's also an amazing actor, but she's not even acting badly in this movie. But what a ham! She's really chewing the scenery, and I think that's by design, even on the director's part, but it's just weird to see Uma Thurman doing that.
And Arnold is acting like incredibly Arnold,
that's the thing.
Even more Arnold than usual.
Well, I understand the decision behind that. It just didn't work. Like it's like what I was saying about Batman Forever. Like, it's 60s Batman, but we didn't realize it, and it's weird. Here, and like similarly, Jim Carrey is like Frank Gorshin, except he's good enough just as Jim Carrey. He's Ace Ventura doing the Riddler. Like, bizarre, but I get it. And same thing for Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's not really leaning into being Mr. Freeze, but Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's that guy? He's the guy who always delivers the one-liners. Let's have him almost exclusively deliver one-liners throughout this entire movie. Like, I get it. It's just a bad idea.
See, the funny thing about this is, like, Arnold would have been a better old-timey Mr. Freeze, but they made him the version from the animated series.
Yeah, the compelling, like, tragic wife story. Yeah.
Yeah, where
old-timey Mr. Freeze was like, I will shoot you with my gun. You'd better give me the money by tomorrow morning. Yeah.
He's a bank robber who has a freeze gun.
He actually did kill somebody in the 60s show. Like, he froze somebody and, like, the guy tipped over and broke or something. Like, oh, shit. Oh, wow. It was just some guy. We were like, whoa.
But you know what I mean? Like, the modern interpretation of Mr. Freeze is that he's not evil. He's just compelled to his own his own goal. And yet, for someone who is not evil but just compelled, he sure seems to love fucking shit up. Like, and only later do you realize that he has the tragic story, but he still seems to thoroughly enjoy being a villain. Like, I guess if I'm going to save my wife, I may as well enjoy it. Yeah, and he has, like, all these thugs.
Another 60s callback. I get it, but not a good idea for the tragic non-villain. Like, you said, this would have been better as old-timey 60 Mr. Freeze, who's just an asshole, because that guy had themed thugs. Yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger
Mr. Freeze doesn't have mooks, like the current interpretation.
Yeah, the sympathetic version absolutely does not, because he's not a villain. The 60s version was. But yeah, this is tragic Mr. Freeze, but he has winter coat, ice skate wearing villains, which is a great idea for the 60s show. But yeah, like, we're doing both Mr. Freezes in one character, and there's just a clash.
And he also does sing-alongs with Rankin Bass.
Like, again, are you a tragic villain, like, hero, like, anti-hero or not? Although, speaking of which, though, I've never seen this before, so I gotta give props. I do enjoy that his mooks aren't really all in on it. They're just like...
They're just in it for the paycheck.
We sing along. I actually do rather enjoy that. It's very rare that you see, like... I mean, movies might make a point of the one mook who, like, is a real person, but it's not common that you see, like, nameless, generic mooks.
They're usually all into it,
There's, like, 2 episodes, maybe 3, in the entirety of Fist of the North Star, where the thugs are like, I don't know about this, but like, it's so rare. You're like, oh. So I kind of enjoyed seeing Mr. Freeze's hockey goons like, man, you like the cold, but we're normal ass humans. We're fucking freezing right now. Like, that was pretty good.
I'm really not used to Batman having contextual gadgets that are only useful
Conker's Bad Fur Day, press the button and it just works. Yeah, he's got ice skates in his bat suit. When did he know he would need... I mean, honestly, Batman has a bunch of bullshit where, like, it's like James Bond, I'm going to need to develop ice skates for my suit for this movie. Like, that's stupid, but I can buy that. But he just already had them? He just always has ice skates on the off chance he'll need to skate on something.
Shink. Let's see. There's a lot of stupid stuff in here, like the American Express commercial right in the middle of it. That's really, really dumb. I
forgot about that.
Yeah, because he has a special Batman version of the American Express card.
Yeah, the no brand name but has a bat symbol on it credit card, which I guess has unlimited credit. I don't know how that works. Who are you charging?
I don't
leave
know.
home without it.
But what's funny is there was an American Express branding in the 1989 one, but it was it was the first mook that he fights is taking it out of a wallet and says no, and makes fun of the.
I mean, I will give props to the bat credit card in that it's a stupid bat object that he has on him. Like, it's supposed to be stupid, but but like there's a point though, even when the movie's making up its own rules, like it's getting too wacky, and like again, calling back to the '60s Batman, Poison Ivy, like, there's a big exotic plant exhibition at Gotham. Oh my God, Poison Ivy showed up. Like, again, good for the '60s stuff, but it still felt weird because like George Clooney and Chris O'Donnell were like basically straight men, whereas in '60s Batman himself is just a cartoon. Like, we must always uphold the law, Robin. It's kind of making fun of itself.
Yeah.
And also Bane was a mook, but bigger.
Yeah, so he's basically a zombie in this movie, which is ridiculous.
And he's Poison Ivy's zombie.
Yeah, so just to give you some context, what had been happening in the comics up to this point is Nightfall had came and went and was a very popular event. It was Batman, Superman had his Death of Superman, and that was like a huge deal. And then Batman had his version of it, which was Nightfall, where he, Bane broke his back, and then he had to retire as Batman for that time period.
Yeah, and by the way, just to contextualize things to any listeners here who are like, well, I saw Superman die in the movies, I saw Batman break his back in the movies, the difference in the comic is that it stuck for more than 5 fucking minutes.
Yeah. So in I think he was not Batman for over a year, which was a big deal.
Yeah, that's a very. Can you imagine the movies pulling that shit? They wouldn't have the guts.
So Batman was then succeeded by a fairly new character, Azrael.
Yeah,
Azrael. Jean Paul Valley as Azrael came back as to take over the Batman title, and then basically went nuts because he couldn't live up to being Batman.
That kind of came up in Arkham City. Azrael shows up in that, and he wants to go like too hardcore for Batman's tastes.
Well, like, everybody was like all the villains that would fight him would be like, okay, you're not Batman, I don't care about you.
Wow.
Basically had a gigantic inferiority.
Well, that reminds me. Well, the funny thing is, a lot of comics did that, like, but playing it completely straight, like without that meta sense about it. Where like whenever they introduce a new hero or like a subclass of hero, like Captain America's assistant, who's also America themed or whatever, they would usually have their own made up just for that comic minor set of villains that nobody's ever heard of until that point. Like it's almost like the Venture Brothers, where the heroes and the villains have to work their way up like a hierarchy.
Yeah.
Like in Venture Brothers, it's official. Like that's literally how it's done. But in the comic books, it's unofficial. Like if you're too small time, Spider-Man has bigger guys to stop than your piddly ass. So like you gotta really make a name for yourself to get the hero's attention. So like I kind of get a kick out of that, even though Azrael's like one of the scariest guys around. I don't know who you are.
Well, he basically becomes homicidal. Like he starts like killing people.
Yeah, well, again, that was the thing in Arkham City. You had to like stop him. He was like he was an interesting character because you could settle how you deal with him in one of two ways. You could either convince him to like back off a bit, or you could treat him as an actual villain because he's on the way to becoming one. So if you want the good version of the ending to his quest line, you shake hands with him and he disappears. But the funny thing is, you're never going to get 100% completion in Gotham's, cells. It'll always say there's one missing, because if you'd gone the bad way, then you just arrest his ass.
Yeah. But I really so in that storyline, Bane is established himself as one of the most diabolical villains that Batman has. Not only is he physically imposing, but he's mentally imposing, which is very rare for a character to be both to Batman.
Even how he broke Batman's back, like the way he got that to work was that he basically freed all of the other Batman villains from Arkham Asylum.
And overwhelmed him. Yeah.
Yeah, and Batman had to fight every single one of them in a row and arrest them, which he actually did. And then he gets back home after fighting like 10 villains, and Bane's waiting for him. And he's like, "Oh, Jesus Christ, like, come on." Like, there's no way I'm fighting this guy. He's tough when I'm in my prime.
Yeah, and so he's a strong person to begin with, but he's also like on super steroids, which is Venom.
Yeah, like Batman might lose a fight with him like before he goes Venom.
Yeah, and so like he is a genius level intellect, like on the level of Batman, and then on top of it, it is all rated out.
Yeah, and speaking of which, I mean, I just hinted at it a second ago, but he was waiting for Batman when he got home. Yeah, he figured out he was Bruce Wayne. They don't really explain how he figured it out, although the funny thing is the way he figured it out was the way all the comic fans figured it out, which is his exact words were, "It could be no other." Like who the fuck else can afford all this shit? It was the same thing with in the movie. Like, I mean, I know he like looked through underground.
Oh, that one guy who's trying to blackmail him.
Yeah, like he looked through underground paths to get to Under Bruce Manor. Like, what a coincidence! But I mean, he sees this bat plane flying out. Who just has that? Like, come on.
Yeah. But I do like the conceit is just like, oh, so you think that the best thing to do is to blackmail this guy? And he was just like,
that was the second movie, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, like where Bane's like, who's the richest person in the world who could afford all this shit? There's one person. I can't even narrow it down. There's just the one guy. That's it. Like,
yeah,
I figured it out. Yeah. No one else has figured. It's like the Clark Kent glasses thing. I mean, like, he does put on a legitimate disguise in his attitude and mannerisms, but, like, you'd think one person would be like, that's just your face.
He's also just, like, he's also really tall. Like, Clark Kent is really tall.
Yeah, well, it was like what they did in the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie. Like, I know that everybody, Ryan Reynolds himself especially, says it's a shit movie, but, like, I really like that one part where he was like, how did you know it was me? And she's like, your mask covers like 1% of your face. Like, how the fuck do I not know it's you?
Exactly. But yeah, getting back to Batman and Robin, you take a character that is diabolical and you make him a brainless mook.
A Pokemon. He just says Bane. Like, really?
Yeah, and he's barely in the movie. He has goofy roid arms, like,
and they're bad looking too. It's like obviously terrible. like a costume, like it's like a little
felt.
It's like a little kid's Halloween like Muscle Man costume. It's all inflated. It looks weird.
Yeah, no. So he's in there just because Bane was popular, but they got him entirely wrong.
That was the thing, because like the Batman movies have had two villains. Like, it's been a recurring theme. Like, I mean, Tim Burton's movie, like the 89 one, but like they had a thing with twos ever since
Batman Returns. Yeah,
and now we have two villains, Freeze and Ivy. Oh, and also Bane. Bane.
So for good measure, they add Batgirl into the mix.
Who also is pretty milquetoast, honestly, and she's related to Alfred.
Barely in the movie.
And Alfred's her uncle, which is like, what?
Yeah, first of all, the most famous Batgirl is Barbara Gordon, and not Barbara Pennyworth, but
that would like she's related to the Commissioner. That's how she ties into this, but like related to like the guy who lives in Batman's house. All right.
Yeah, I don't get it. She's barely in the movie. She's the only character that doesn't have nipples on her uniform.
She gets to fight Poison Ivy because you're not going to have Batman punch a woman in the face.
Yeah.
It's also weird. I mean, even in the comics, like, you don't just fight Poison Ivy. That's not usually how it works anyway.
No. Usually
you fight the shit that she does.
Exactly.
Crazy. You don't just punch her in the face.
Yeah, it does happen, but yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it has. It's been like 80 years, but like, that's not traditionally what you do.
Well, I think in Long Halloween, a Catwoman straight up kicks her in the face, but
that's Catwoman. That's not Batman.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, it's just bad.
I do like, by the way, in I think it was Arkham City, how like Catwoman and Poison Ivy like barely tolerate each other.
Yeah, well, they don't get along.
There's a pretty funny part where like Poison Ivy's like, I will help you, but in return, I want you to take this plant and put it in some location in Gotham so that it can help spread whatever. And Catwoman's like, fine, I'll do it. And like the instant she leaves the building, she just crushes the flowers. Like, fuck this.
Catwoman is kind of in a funny way the most loner character in the like the Bat Sphere. She only really interacts with Batman, and that's it.
And even then, she keeps a distance. Like, Batman tries
Yeah.
getting closer than she does. Like,
Well,
you thought Batman was alone.
not nowadays. They're engaged. But,
Yeah, well, it finally hit that point. But like,
Yeah.
but I mean, for a while though, it was like Spider-Man and Black Cat, where Spider-Man's like, I can't get too close. But this is the other way around. It's like Catwoman's even more like protective of herself than Batman is of himself, which is impressive.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, also the set design and like gadgets and everything is all really goofy and colorful, very
Yeah.
toyetic.
I mean, yeah, the toyetic part, and we mentioned Joel Schumacher talking about that before, but it's also kind of 60s. Like, I mean, 60s Batman was extremely colorful. Again, the problem is they're trying to combine 60s Batman and 2000, like 90s 2000s Batman. It's just like, it's the Arnold Schwarzenegger problem, but like for the whole movie. Like, I see what they're doing there, but it's not Joel Schumacher's true vision, because he's also trying to incorporate an element of the seriousness, and it's like, well, but these are complete opposite ideas. Like same thing for, like, you know, Mr. Freeze is serious sometimes. Poison Ivy's origin, I mean, her the guy she turned into Bane, that guy was wacky, goofy mad scientist, but what was happening to Poison Ivy was scary, so it's also like this weird disconnect. But like the part that I think of is when they all are driving in the car, Bane's driving, and they need to be in disguise, so like they have stupid like trench coats, and Bane himself also has a trench coat and a hat, but he's still wearing his luchador outfit. Like, that's funny. That's absolutely, like, that's a Ninja Turtles thing to do. But it's also like, in a follow-up to the Burton movies, though, it's like, but this is stupid. I can clearly see through his disguise. Like, on one hand, that's the joke, but on the other hand, it's very stupid.
Yeah, also the worst version of the Batmobile probably ever.
I don't remember that one, actually.
It's really, it's lit up and very bright.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
Whereas, you know, Batmobile is supposed to be incognito and utilitarian. It is supposed to be there, you know, in order to slip under things and be nimble and get Batman from one place to another, and also houses gadgets. This one is very bright, very eye-catching. I think it appears to be a one-seater in this version, which is even dumber.
Yeah, especially because that was a major thing in, I think it was the Burton movie, where Vicky Vale got like Joker gassed. You had to take her back to the cave. Like,
the Batmobile is always been a two-seater.
Yeah, like I was gonna say, that's tough to do in a one-seater.
Yeah, no, the Batmobile always has been a two-seater, and this is the. I think what they wanted to do is they wanted Batman and Robin to have separate vehicles so they could have separate toys,
and they did when they had the motorcycles.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. Oh my God, this movie's.
Like, the thing is, there are a lot of...
It is fun, though.
Kind of. But the thing is, there are a lot of movies and shows that do the buy the toy thing. Like Kamen Rider is extremely buy the toy, but it presents those things in a way that's cool, though.
Yeah, because you want the toy because it's cool in context, right?
I mean, I like Transformers is a giant toy. Well, the old one, G1, was a giant toy commercial, but like, if the show weren't good, then you wouldn't care.
Yeah, exactly. That's why people stopped liking He-Man, because He-Man, like, you know, eventually wasn't cool at all. I mean,
yeah, like the toys were kind of cool, and the show just was like unwatchable.
Yeah, exactly. So, in terms of marketing, this movie was popular for the time, believe it or not. That's probably the reason why it's so reviled, is so many people saw it.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Like, was popular or did well at the box office?
That's what I mean. Yeah. People went to go see it and hated it, and it's been the butt of like superhero humor for
people
a very,
still
very,
make
very long
bat
time.
Nipple on the suit, or like Hello Freeze on Batman jokes, like
Cool Party.
That's by far my favorite, because like I did mention Arnold Schwarzenegger is just a one-liner machine in this movie. Like, I get it, but, like, again, it's missing the point because that's more about Arnold himself than Mr. Freeze. It was the same thing with Jim Carrey as himself for the Riddler, except, I mean, we wouldn't have known so well at the time, but, like, Frank Gorshin's Riddler, he was goofy, but, like, in a vacuum, you're just like, that's just Jim, it's not even the Riddler, that's Jim Carrey dressed up as the Riddler, and that was Batman and Robin. That's not Mr. Freeze, that's Arnold Schwarzenegger dressed up as Mr. Freeze. But yeah, he would make all sorts of things like, I'm sorry, but your pleas leave me cold, and like a lot of ice jokes. But yeah, that one where he just crashes that one gala and says, cool party, like that is such a fucking throwaway joke. That's the one that I find the funniest, because it's like, it's so poor. Like, you could have done better with that. Like he fires his freeze gun at Robin. Chill out, bird boy. But cool party. Dude, I mean, I know there are only so many ice jokes you can make in a row, but that's weak, dude.
So, this did have a video game on the PlayStation that was
I forgot about that.
A 3D like third-person Batman game. It was probably the first of its type, actually. I can't think of a Batman game before that was like that. But yeah, it wasn't very good, but I think it was the first time, you could actually do some detective work in a Batman game.
Sure.
Which is kind of interesting because it was linked to such a weird, bad movie.
Yeah, the one that has like the least amount of detective work in it.
Yeah, it was a very odd game.
Batman,
not good though.
Like 89 Batman, I remember detective work. Forever, I certainly do, like finding out the Riddler and everything. Returns probably had some, like, right? Detective work? I mean,
he had to figure out who,
like Cobblepot, I guess.
No,
he announced his name.
He publicly revealed that. Yeah. The only thing he really had to do in that one was like shame him publicly, but that wasn't detective work.
Yeah, where as you mentioned, which I didn't even think about this, but where you mentioned this during our Police Knots Let's Play, where he like record scratches. I remember that, but you mentioned that he was doing that to a CD.
Yes,
and it worked.
Yes. And that's probably the goofiest part of that movie. But
yeah, that's like a weirdly comical, like, even if it were actually a record, just the idea of Michael Keaton Batman doing that, like, it's all right.
Especially while in the middle of publicly shaming him, which is really funny.
Yeah, like clearly somebody is manipulating this behind the scenes, obviously.
Yeah. Ugh. But yeah, I mean, I don't have much else to say about Batman and Robin. I mean,
I only really have one more thing.
Yeah.
Alfred suddenly catches the same disease Freeze's wife had.
Oh boy.
And they're able to surprisingly quickly come up with a cure, even though Mr. Freeze himself is like a genius doctor and researcher.
Yeah.
Batman just gets this shit and gives it to. I mean, he saves Alfred, but doesn't he also give it to Freeze? Like, he like basically just cures Freeze's wife, which means Mr. Freeze himself is, he's still Frozen Man all the time, but like, I guess he doesn't need to be a villain anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it's awful. I mean, there's a point where they're at Arkham where they show costumes of the old villains, which is kind of funny, but there's some little cameo crap going on there. But
you'd think they would keep that at like the Batcave and not like the mental asylum, which has like relics of the monsters who broke out.
Yeah, why would you want to remind the patients of their own psychosis?
Yeah, like Batman's the guy who keeps like relics, not the asylum, the mental asylum.
Yeah, I don't get it.
I mean, I get why they did it in the movie, like for you, the viewers, but like it's a weird location to do it.
I'm wondering whether this movie or the original Suicide Squad is worse. I can't decide.
This movie has a problem because it's conflicting ideas, because I want 90s Batman, but I also want 60s Batman. Yeah. Suicide Squad was interfered with on the outside by harsh rewrites that just fucked up what otherwise would have been, I don't know how good or bad or what, but definitely better.
Yeah.
So that's the. I mean, to be fair though, even the Schumacher movie was interfered with by studios because of the whole toyetic thing. So it's like, pick your poison, I guess.
I'm trying to think whether I would watch this or Batman v Superman, or like which one I would pick to watch.
But by the way, I will probably take Batman Forever over Suicide Squad, because Suicide Squad is lost potential, and Batman Forever at least.
You mean Batman and Robin?
Excuse me, and Robin. Batman and Robin at least has fun being stupid, even though a lot of the jokes don't land.
Yeah,
but Suicide Squad should have been a decent movie, and it just isn't.
Yeah. Huh. I think like there are some compelling performances, at least in Suicide Squad. I mean, like Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn is undeniably good.
Good enough to be back in the Suicide Squad.
Well, she's in several movies. She was in Birds of Prey as well.
Well, yeah, but again, she keeps reprising her role as Harley Quinn because she's a damn good Harley Quinn. Like, who else came back from Suicide Squad?
Yeah, exactly. Well, Captain Boomerang comes back.
That's pretty great. Who is that? He's a Flash villain?
He is a Flash villain, yes.
I still remember I still remember one of the most emotionally powerful scenes in Justice League Unlimited, the cartoon, before it gets emotionally powerful, where you see the Trickster just moping to himself while drinking at a bar, and because he's just been left out of the plans, just like Captain Boomerang and Captain. Maybe I could have joined them if I were called Captain. It's great.
In the Suicide Squad, Harley Quinn calls him Boomer. Okay, Boomer. It's kind of funny. But yeah, he's in the new one, and he's pretty great in that. But anyway, I don't know. I think the original Suicide Squad is devoid of any soul, and that's
the whole thing. Like, it had soul until it didn't.
Yeah, no, that's a problem. And I think Jared Leto's Joker is actually not bad. But his way of acting is not.
His way of acting is interesting, and this part is not Jared Leto's own fault. But what I've seen pointed out is that if he's the Joker, where's the fucking jokes? Like Heath Ledger has a lot of dark jokes that aren't haha funny, but they're like, there was
like the pencil thing.
There was a joke. Or my favorite probably is either the directions of where to go in the envelope, and it's just an arrow pointing up, and then the car explodes, or the like, we can't go this way, Batman. We'll have to go around. You find the way to go, and like the highway's blocked off by a fire truck that is on fire, and nothing else anywhere near is on fire. Like, the only thing is a fire truck.
It's a literal fire truck.
Yeah, that's fucked up, and it's not funny, but it's a joke.
It's funny.
Whereas Jared Leto's Joker is like a gangster who wears purple.
Yeah, and he's manic. That's about it. Yeah.
I guess there is. It's debatably a joke. It's like The Shining. Like, I'm not gonna kill you. I'm just gonna hurt you really bad. Like, that's kind of a joke, sort of. But it's about as good as it's gonna get.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, Jack Nicholson was always doing something wacky.
This town needs an enema.
Even when people weren't watching, he was trying. He was mugging.
Yeah.
So anyway,
and he had that line, "Wait until they get a load of me." Good enough to be homaged in Kick-Ass.
Oh yeah. So we should probably move on to fan stuff here.
Why, sure. So Skill Filmer has a couple comments. I have to say, the Corrective Classic episodes were good company on my trip to and from the city, where I caught a stand-up comedy show. Very different messages last week, as I write this. And the line, "What show did my son tell me to watch?" was a fun one. And then also, this is regarding the spicy foods. The spiciest food I have eaten relates to a box of Asian snacks I got for my 30th birthday, which includes 3 bottles of ramen, some gum, and a box of Pocky, not to mention a few. And one of the things inside was a 5-pack of Korean ramen noodles. It was so spicy that it took me about 30 minutes per bowl to finish, even with hard-boiled eggs. It was tasty, though, even if I ended up sweating during the meal due to how spicy it was. Another thing in the box was the Flaming 5 version.
I need to get that.
Yeah, right?
Sounds good.
Another thing in the box was the Flaming 5 version of Bean Boozled. Not looking forward to it at all.
Wow.
I've heard of that computer game. It was Bean Boozled Goes Nutso, am I right?
Bean Boozled is a game that they played with Bernie Bot's Every Flavor Beans from
God,
from Harry Potter.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then Living Corpse has a few comments. the dead are coming back to life and eating the candy of the living. This is the worst timeline. And then he says, on some level, I think sympathy is the secondary reason Bruce dresses up as a bat. Originally, it was to scare criminals, but Bruce has mental issues, and he's very much self-aware of them. Yeah. So when he sees criminals with mental issues, he on some level figures they'll open up more to another outcast, a man dressed as a bat, than a doctor or a police negotiator. I think it works to a degree. I'm partly on board with that. Like, for his rogues gallery, we've seen it happen. But for thugs, he just fucking beats the shit out of them.
Yeah.
So, like, it depends on who's writing that episode today.
Yeah, exactly.
And then one more comment from Living Corpse. It's ironic that the defense spicy plants have to prevent them from being overeaten by us ended up being not only taken as a challenge by us, but we breed and farm them, thus guaranteeing they will not go extinct as we eat them. Task failed upwards? Yeah, that's like that computer message, task failed successfully. Also, cats don't have sweet receptors for taste. Sad.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that sucks. And then Dracologist says, regarding worms, World Party came after Armageddon, and it was basically Armageddon 2.0. I knew World Party came after. I forgot it was Armageddon 2.0. I was thinking the 3D-ish one, but I forgot what that was called.
It was called Worms 3D.
Was it literally just called that?
Yeah, it was called Worms 3D.
Well, all right. And then our question for this week is from Stranga Games. This is calling back to earlier questions he'd asked about like what choices we would make game design-wise, or what do you think about games that are not the popular genre of that era? Can they still exist? Stuff like that. So this is following up on that. Thanks for answering my questions. I was really on the fence about changing genre at one stage, but I have more fun making these kinds of games. Telling stories is just my thing. And the actual question, what are some of your favorite multiple ending games? And if you did make a game, how would you implement multiple endings, if you could or would?
So in most games that have multiple endings, there's clearly a good ending, or one that is canonically ranked higher than others.
Yeah.
Which honestly I don't like, because it doesn't
go for that one.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't encourage you to explore the other ones, and the other like ways it could happen. So therefore, it's kind of eliminating. It's setting a goal for yourself rather than showing a way of telling like a story in different ways. So I think it's actually kind of lazy to do that. There are plenty of games where you have to like if you choose the hard way, it's more interesting. The wrong way, it's more interesting. Like you have Undertale that has one of the craziest battles of all time in a video game.
Yeah, and the game constantly makes you feel like shit the entire time you take that path.
Yeah, but it clearly has a preference as to the morality of the game. Rather.
Well, that's true, but the bad ending works because it's an entire bad path and an entire different way of playing the game. It's not that's like, true. I'm going to go for the bad ending. Like, I'm going to go for the bad playthrough. Because what I was going to say is disappointing is when you get to the very end of the game, and I know Mass Effect 3 is the easy answer for this, but also like Deus Ex Human Revolution, where you're literally in a room, press a button to choose the
buttons.
ending.
Yeah, 3
now,
buttons.
Now, to be fair, you have to do different things to set up the buttons. It's not like nothing you did matters, here's the endings. But it still feels like, save now, choose an ending. Like, that's something that I'm less of a fan of.
Yeah, I don't like that either. So then you get to one of my favorite, and I talk about this game a lot because I think it's still criminally overlooked. But Alpha Protocol has one of the best ways of handling this. Like, depending on the relationships and the like how you've interacted with the characters, your ending can be completely different than the next. And with good reason. Like, you wouldn't have made the connections that you needed to make for certain versions of the ending. Like, the ending that I got honestly wasn't very fulfilling. So I'm really curious to see what I could have done to get a more fulfilling ending.
Yeah.
Because the way that I played Alpha Protocol when I played it was I tried to get everyone to like me, and that um is not right.
Yeah,
Like
look,
they
I tried doing that in a visual novel. If I tried
Yeah.
pleasing everybody, then that means that I'm not gonna get the really good ending with any one of them. I'm gonna get
Yeah.
the a little better than lukewarm ending for all of them.
Yeah, exactly. So like the bad guy ended up kind of like liking me, and like you don't want that. You want to be throwing like insults at the bad guy and getting him to hate you. So like and the yeah, it's just the way it went. So I think that is the best way to handle it, is to have a heavy amount of experimentation and variance.
Yeah,
It
actually, regarding this, one of my favorite sets of games that handles this kind of thing, and it also is radically different playthroughs, is Until Dawn and the
Yeah,
Dark Anthology games. There's three of them
sure.
now, but there'll be more later. I mean, like, you can argue it's frustrating to get through those games because the entire thing is cutscenes that like you can't skip because there's QTEs in them and everything and decision making. So it'll take a very long time to do another playthrough. But the endings that you get because of the paths you take can be radically different. Who knows who's even alive by the end of the games? Now, in Until Dawn, whoever was alive would talk about, like, they would talk to like a TV interviewer based on characters' likability level with them. Like, that guy was an asshole versus he was pretty cool. Is he okay? You know, that kind of thing. That
Yeah,
was the variance. And they would interview on the camera if they were alive, and they wouldn't be there if they were dead. But the Dark Anthology games, even though I kind of like Until Dawn better than most of those, the Dark Anthology games, you could have radically different endings. Like, you might be rescued from your situation and talk into the TV cameras. Like in the early game would do that. Like Man of Medan had a potential ending where that could happen. But also, the whole premise of Man of Medan is you find this old military ship from like World War, like what, 2 or something, and you're just investigating it. It's this derelict ship. You're supposed to call for radio help in that game, and you call like another military boat. And if you can't get your little dinghy to work and leave the ship, you could get rescued at the end, but like not really, because you're locked in a fucking military prison for investigating military property. So it's like a radically different ending. And Little Hope and House of Ashes can do the same thing. You might be interviewing somebody, you could be arrested, you could be free, like, and you might honestly not even know what's going to happen until near endgame based on what you're able to accomplish or what you actively chose to do or not to do. So that's pretty fun as well. Also, by the way, shout out to Clock Tower and games like Corpse Party, where dying can happen, but it's usually not how the game ends. Usually what happens is you'll have an ending where you die. Like Clock Tower has endings like A through H, where the lower like 5 or 6 endings is you just die at different points in the game. It's like that was an ending. And in Corpse Party, there's almost no way to die normally. Like you usually have to try to make it happen, but there are tons of ways to die that count as wrong ends, and those are like half of the game, like the crazy, flavorful, horrific things that happen to your various characters. So like it's the bad ending, you're not supposed to get those, but they're also a lot of the flavor of the game in the first place. Same goes for Clock Tower. You obviously want the A or the S ending, but you're missing on a considerable amount of detail if you skip the other endings.
Wow. I mean, I think probably the best way to handle things is to have several compelling endings, and you kind of need to decide what's best for you rather than have the game
Yeah,
decide
instead
what's.
of this is the bad ending. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, New Vegas is interesting in that regard because there's always an ending that like there's good things and bad things to every ending. So there's no canonically like best ending because no matter whose side you take, there are benefits and detractions, from picking it. So, like, if you have, if you help Mr. Vegas, I think his name is, I forget his name, but like, if you end up helping him, he goes on like ruling New Vegas, and like, like he rules it with an iron fist. He's basically a dictator. You can be on the side of the of Caesar, but then you're helping imperialists. You could be on the side of the New California Republic, but there are problems with the way that they are running things as well. So I think you just kind of have to. It's like real life. You go with what makes you most comfortable.
Yeah, and I will say, as a well, not really a caveat, but as like an honorable mention, I suppose, what can also help is making the bad endings like more interesting than the good endings. Because with the good endings, it's the journey, not the destination. With the bad endings, it's like, well, let's see what happens. And what also can be interesting, by the way, I've brought this up a couple times before, is it's an old game now, but Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2, where there comes a point in the game where like it judges whether you've been killing civilians or not. So are you a light Jedi or a dark Jedi? And at that point, it sets your path in stone. But you get different force powers at that point. The light side is more like healing and ability enhancement, and dark side is more like cool magic powers that you wouldn't use as a good Jedi, because you're not supposed to be like force choking people. That's a fucked up thing to do. So that gives you more interesting things to do. Also, I found the bad ending to be like, maybe it's just because I played it during my formative years, but I still find that ending, brief as it was, to be one of the more emotionally impactful endings I've seen in a game, that really actually kind of made you feel like shit for choosing the bad ending. Do you know how that game ends?
No, I don't.
It's amazing. Like, the good ending is you beat Jarek and you save everybody, and it's about what you'd expect. It is a good ending, but like, oh, thank goodness for you, Kyle Katarn. But the bad ending is so fucked because you don't fight Jarek's right-hand woman. Like, she just, I forgot what happened. You don't kill her. So in the final cutscene, you kill Jarek and you take over. I mean, I think you kill him in either ending, but like, you take over his position. So she's just serving you. So like, that woman, I forgot her name, she's just like, boss, there's a rebellion going on whatever planet. Like, what should we do about it? And you're just like, quash it. And then she leaves the room, and you pull out this video disc that you saw. Like, you actually got to watch the video disc in the very beginning of the game, and you play the disc again, and it's like an old video of like your now dead father. Like, Jarek's the one who killed him. That's part of why you've been playing this whole game. So it's your father talking to a young you who had just made it into like the academy, and he's like, "Oh my god, I can't believe this! I'm so proud of you!" And like, you cut the feed after he says, "I'm so proud of you," and you drop the disc on the ground and crush it under your foot. It's just like, ugh. Like, I am the winner, but like Kyle himself knows, is like, this isn't what I should be. This I'm a piece of shit.
One of the better bad endings that I like is like in Bioshock, your band of mutants comes to the surface and takes over the planet. I mean, the Audrey 2 style. You should not have done that. Yeah. Like, I kind of like that. It's more comical than anything. It's just like, of course, that's not the ending they want you to have.
Yeah. Well, it also kind of depends on the ending. Did you know that there are secretly 3 Bioshock endings, even though not really?
So what's the third one?
It's the same one. The difference, the difference is, it's whether you saved any little sisters at all, or if you didn't. So if you go like, so like the video is narrated by, what's her name? Like that woman that...
The nurse.
Yeah, like Mother Goose, that Fontaine calls her.
Yeah.
She narrates the same exact thing when you take over. but it's either in a sad and disappointed voice or an angry voice. Otherwise, it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's I mean, like I said, I think it's best to be compelling in several different ways. The kind of game with multiple endings that I absolutely hate are the ones that make me so nervous to do anything that I don't want to play them.
Oh yeah, if you miss this, then you cut off the whole quest line.
Yeah,
Like Dark Souls NPCs. That doesn't affect the ending, but
in a way it does, because like the whole feeling of the game changes.
Well, the feeling can, but I mean, like you didn't talk to him, so now he doesn't spawn later, and it's like, because like the ending
so
of the game
stupid.
is determined at the last second. Do you stay or do you leave? Only Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne kind of introduces ways of like affecting the game's ending before you get there.
Well, the ones that I'm referencing is like Shin Megami Tensei.
Yeah.
Like those games really bother me when I play them, because I have to play them with a guide.
If you're really trying for the neutral ending.
Well, but that is the canonically best ending.
Yeah.
Because the game is supposed to teach you that like being one way in any direction is bad. Being a zealot, being a zealot is bad, and believing in things so harshly is a bad thing. So therefore, the best is to be somewhere in the middle. But I get that. But as a result, you have to play this weird tug of war with its morality system in order to get to that point. And then you can go fight, your extra bosses. Like, it clearly wants you to do that, because that's how you get, extra content, right? You're rewarded with extra content by doing that. So therefore, that is the game's judgment. This is the correct way to play it, right? I hate that, because all of the choices have hidden values, and they all add up, and they add up at the end of the game, and you don't know whether you have enough in one direction or another.
Well, not only that, but that ties into something that's a pet peeve of mine, which is there are choices, but not really. You're not playing the game the way you naturally would. That's the complaint I always make about Mass Effect. This is the Paragon decision. This is the Renegade decision. So, okay, I won't think. I'll just choose the one that I want the ending of. I won't actually have my own. 'Cause this was something that David Cage had said about Heavy Rain. I mean, the game has trophy support and everything, but he was like, play the game once without looking anything up. Just play the way you would, and when you beat it, that's your playthrough. That's the one. That's it. Now, I don't know if that'll satisfy everybody, but I get what he means. It doesn't feel like I have to look up what to do to achieve this or that. Although, speaking of which, going in the exact opposite direction, even though this is a completely opposing viewpoint, it can also work toward a good multiple ending thing. Trophies. Are you a completionist? Yeah. Play the other endings.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, my guess is for it to be completely like a good way to play something, you should have compelling conclusions to multiple different paths that are satisfying in different ways.
Yeah, which is very hard because you're making multiple games at that point, but if you do it half-baked, then people will know.
And have different unique content at the end that you're rewarded with. So therefore, in order to get the full experience, and there's no judgment. There's no judgment. Like the game wants you to see what would happen if this happened. So I don't know. I never felt like Mass Effect is just like choose a path. It never felt like an organic choice.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, at the time it was novel, but then it wore off by the third game, and people were like, okay, I'm bored of this.
Yeah, the Until Dawn stuff and the Dark Anthology stuff did it better, because not only are there multiple different paths with multiple different trophies and everything that are not objectively good or evil, but some of the trophies I'll admit this sucks the fun out of it for me personally, but there's also like, what if you have an entire playthrough where you don't make a choice if you just wait the clock out?
Yeah.
Or what if you only make brain decisions? Or what if you only make heart decisions? So I mean that's like Paragon and Renegade anyway, but they're not morality based. It's just like, let's see what happens if I were to do this.
Sure. I know the Walking Dead Telltale games have a way of doing this in a way that feels very satisfying. Even though the game pushes forward either way, depending on what you do.
Yeah, and
it's just your relationships change.
That's the thing. Like, I don't think there's a save everybody path, otherwise everybody would do that. So you'd be like, this is what I think will have the best outcome, and like, that person dies, you're like, ah, shit.
Yeah. So I think if that answers your question, that is the kind of game that I want to see. As I want to see one that's more like Alpha Protocol than the Mass Effect. I want to see a game that doesn't have a binary or trinary choice at the end that's very obvious. I want to see, hey, if I align myself with this, I want a satisfying ending. If I align myself with this group, I want a satisfying ending. Like, it just,
Yeah, or even in sequels, like The Witcher was really good about this. Things you chose in one game could affect, to a degree, how the world works in the next game.
Sure.
I mentioned this a very long time ago, but there's the humans and there's the non-humans, and it's like a pretty heavy-handed, like
racist
oppression of minority. Yeah. What's interesting, though, is if you choose to side with humans, in the second game, there's a part where you need to like sneak through some cave to enter this town because the gate's locked. But if you had sided with humans in the first game, it turns out that the human you had sided with, Siegfried, is like one of the head guards at the place. And if he sees you, he's like, "Oh, you could just come in." And you just like skip that whole portion. It's amazing. It's like it's you,
That's
it's
awesome.
Carol. I had gone the other way, but I find that just amusing.
That's funny. All right, well, I think that answers that question, and I really want to thank you for posing that one.
Yeah, much appreciated.
Any other things for the good of the order there, Lotus?
No, I think I'm good.
That's the show for this week. We want to thank all of our fans who contributed questions. These were, and the comments both were really good this week. Please keep us supplied with awesome topics by submitting questions of your own via the YouTube and Soundcloud pages. Please, we need more and more. While there, please give us thumbs ups, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. Helps promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement helps keep the show going. You can also catch us on Tuesdays for our sister podcast, Corrective Consciousness, the in-depth look at this week in our lives. Finally, you can friend me on pretty much anything. Just give me a heads up. Let me know who you are and how you know me.
And you can follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, if you are interested in seeing my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams, selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, or participating in conversations with me and other patrons on Discord, then perhaps consider swinging by my Patreon account, which can be found at patreon.com/LotusPrince.
All right. Well, we will catch everybody on Tuesday then.
Until next time, everyone.
Bye-bye.